Good morning. So good to see everyone here. Let's hope that this connection holds. If the connection is lost, I will try to reestablish it as quickly as I can. Sometimes I can, sometimes I can't. They say it's at Facebook's end. I don't know. But anyway, good to see everyone here. And indeed, Brother Paul Wilbur's great song, Prepare the Way. Every nation is going to say to Zion one day, your Elohim reigns. And he is indeed will reign then, and he reigns now, and he will reign forever. Now today's Torah portion is actually a couple of weeks old, but we just got through going through Hebrews. I wanted to go back and touch on this. The Torah portion is called She-Lach, and it means to send. Like Paul, the Apostle Paul, in Hebrew, he would have been known as a Shaliach, or a sent one. So this is where this comes. It comes from the 12 spies that Yah commanded Moses to send and spy out the land of Canaan. But before we get there, I want to look briefly in Numbers 12. Numbers 12, right before Numbers 13, where it starts. And I want to read 12 verse 1 to start off with. Numbers 12 verse 1. Then Miriam and Aaron spoke against Moses because, that means criticized by the way, spoke against Moses because of the Ethiopian woman he had married, for he had married an Ethiopian woman. Oh Lord, can you believe this happened? Okay, anyway, first question is, where did this woman come from? Where did this lady of Cush, this Ethiopian woman, where did she come from? Now, the Exodus route that the children of Israel took when they left Egypt went nowhere near the land of Cush, which is modern-day Ethiopia. It went nowhere near there. So I think it's clear, beloved ones, that this woman, obviously a lady of color, obviously was a part of the mixed multitude that came out of Egypt with the Hebrews that Yah had joined to Israel, just like he does with us today. Now, let's look at Hebrews 12, 2 through 8 now. Let's look at this. What happened? So they said, meaning Miriam and Aaron, they said, has the Lord indeed spoken only through Moses? Has he not spoken through us also? And Yah heard it. Now this isn't hearing, it got his attention. That's what this is saying. It got his attention. He was not happy with this. Now the man Moses, verse 3, was very humble, more than all the men that were on the face of the earth. That's an amazing statement, is it not? An amazing statement. To be a leader, you must have humility. You must have humility. Always direct any praise or glory that someone may send you back to where it belongs, beloved ones. Always do that. Never forget that. All right. Verse 4, suddenly Yah said to Moses, Aaron, and Miriam, come out, you three, to the tabernacle of meeting. So the three came out. Then Yah came down in a pillar of cloud. Sound familiar? And stood in the door of the tabernacle and called Aaron and Miriam. Now he's separating these two from Moses. And they both went forward. Then he said, hear my words. If there is a prophet among you, I, Yahovah, make myself known to him in a vision, or I speak to him in a dream, but not so with my servant Moses. Amazing, is it not? He is faithful in all my house. I speak with him face to face, even plainly, and not in dark sayings. And he sees the form of Yahovah. Why then were you not afraid to speak against my servant Moses? Now, as great as people, as both Aaron and Miriam obviously were, it looks like they had a problem. Does it not? Beloved ones, listen to me. It does not matter then or now what color a person's epidermis is. Okay? in choosing a friend, choosing a business partner, choosing a spouse. That does not matter. Okay? It does not matter. The main thing to consider is this. Is this person in covenant with the Holy One of Israel? That's the question. That's the question. Everything else, everything is academic. It's academic. If you love that man or that woman, none of that matters. The only thing that matters is that person in covenant with Yah. Now, I'm sure that you have come across these Christian identity movement folks, okay, who say that all of Israel is Caucasian. All right? And I'm sure you've heard of the black Hebrew Israelites who say the exact opposite. Now, the truth is this has never been an issue with the Most High. That has never been an issue with the Most High. That's men. That comes from men. He made all the skin tones. Did he not? He made all the skin tones and has promised to what? Save some out of every tribe, every tongue, every people, and every nation, and become your brothers and sisters. Now, so please do not get fooled by that nonsense. Don't get fooled by that nonsense. Now, Elohim had no problem whatsoever with Moses marrying this woman, whom I am sure was a most wonderful lady and devoted wife to Moses. Now, if we were to keep reading, finish this chapter, we would find out that Yah struck Miriam with zaros, which is translated leprosy in most English versions, for 7 days. But I would like to examine something quickly before we leave and go into 13 from verse 8 of chapter 12 that we just read. In this English version, and most of them say, it says that Elohim spoke to Moses face to face. Now that is not exactly what the Hebrew says. Face to face would be pen al pen. Pen is face in Hebrew. Would be pen al pen. But the manuscript says pay al pay. Pay is mouth. Mouth. The letter pay even looks like a mouth. The letter pay even looks like a mouth. So this is an idiom, beloved ones, that is explained right after where he says, let's look at it again. I'll read it correctly this time. I speak with him mouth to mouth, even plainly. Even plainly, or easy to understand, and not in dark sayings. That means riddles or parables. So he speaks to him in plain language. In plain language, mouth to mouth. That's what that means when it says even, or this is what I mean, plainly, in plain spoken tongue. Now we'll move into chapter 13. Look at verse 1. Verse 1 of chapter 13, get into the Torah portion now. And Yah spoke to Moses, saying, send men out into the land of Canaan, which I am giving to the children of Israel. Does everybody see that? Which I am giving, not say I am giving to the children of Israel. From each tribe of the fathers you shall send a man, everyone a leader among them. Okay, now Yah commands Moses to send out spies into the land that he has already declared numerous times, not just here, that he is going to give them. Okay? This is important to remember for us because the spies all came back with a bad report except Caleb and Yehoshua. Except Caleb and Joshua. The spies with the evil report had what? A lack of faith. They had a lack of faith, beloved ones, in the word of the promise. The promise. They were seeing the problem, but not the solution. The solution, of course, comes from above. The problem, not the solution. Now, We just came through the letter to the Hebrews, the first 10 chapters. We just finished that. And remember in chapter 4, verse 2 of Hebrews, it talks about the children of Israel in the desert. And it says, the word did not profit them, not being mixed with faith. With faith. This is the issue they ran into here. Faith is a principle that is taught all the way through the Scripture. In Hebrew, faith is emunah. Emunah, and it is always in action form and never passive form. It's always action, doing something. Now, three times, beloved ones, in James chapter 2, it says faith without works is deceased. It's dead. It's over. That's what it said 3 times. Now, this proves, beloved ones, that this has not changed in the New Testament. Still the same. Beloved ones, it's not 66 books. It's not 2 books. It's 1 book. It's always going to agree with itself. It's always going to agree with itself. Let's skip now, because I don't want to run out of time, and I don't want to lose this connection, to verse 23 in Numbers 13. There's some interesting things here that I want you to see. Chapter 20, verse 23, chapter 13 of Numbers. Then they came to the valley of Eshcol. That means to gather, cut. And there cut down a branch of one cluster of grapes. They carried it between two of them on a pole. They also brought out some of the pomegranates and figs. Grapes, pomegranates, and figs. Now, I think we can see a deeper meaning here by these that are mentioned. Grapes, pomegranates, and figs. What are grapes used for? Grapes are used to make wine. Grapes are used to make wine, which is a type of joy and a type of the Ruach HaKodesh, the Holy Spirit in Scripture, showing that happiness awaits in the land and the Spirit is preparing it for them. Then we have pomegranates mentioned. Remember that pomegranates figured prominently in the temple carvings on the walls and on the hem of the garment of the high priest. Why? Why? Because, beloved, did you know this? In most pomegranates, there are exactly 613 seeds. Now that should ring a bell. 613 seeds, 1 for each of the commandments. And they are sweet to the taste and very good for your health, just as the Yahweh says the Torah is to his people. Amazing, is it not? Amazing. And the last thing was figs. Israel is called what? The fig tree. My fig tree. So I believe that Yah is saying this is their land forever. He says it both literally and he says it figuratively, like he just did right here. Let's look at verse 27, chapter 13 of Numbers. Then they told him and said, we went into the land where you sent us. It truly flows with milk and honey, and this is the fruit, meaning the grapes, the pomegranate, and the figs. Okay. The land truly flows with milk and honey. This is an idiom. This is a Hebrew idiom, and it means it is abundant in all things. Abundant in all things. Now, this brings up a question. A question. And I'm sure you recall, if we were to read all of this chapter, all of the evil people that were inhabiting the land, the sons of Anak, which were giants, the Nephilim, they were there. The wicked pagans that engaged in false idol worship and child sacrifice and bestiality, that surely they were probably thought they were being blessed by their false gods because of the overabundance of the land. I bet they thought that. Don't you think so? I bet they thought they were doing the right thing. But the reality of the situation, the reality was they were under a curse. A curse. I'm going to go back to Genesis 9 just for a second, read a couple of passages out of Genesis. Genesis 9 and verse 25. Genesis 9, verse 25. Let me put a little background here for you. This is after the sin Ham committed with Noah, whatever it was. I know there's a lot of speculation. We won't get into that. The sin Ham committed with his father Noah. So Noah awoke, verse 24, Noah awoke from his wine and knew what his younger son had done to him. Then he said, Noah said, cursed be Canaan. This is Ham's son. Cursed be Canaan, a servant of servants he shall be to his brethren. All right. Note that Canaan and his descendants are cursed because of what Ham did to Noah, his father. The land, you see, was blessed because of what its future inhabitants, the children of Israel, would be there. That's why it was being blessed. I want to look at something else from Genesis 15. Genesis chapter 15. This is an amazing prophecy. An amazing prophecy. Genesis 15, beginning in verse 13 through 16. Then he, meaning Yah, said to Abram, this is even before he became Abraham, before Isaac was even thought of, before he had any children. Look at what it says. Then he said to Abram, know certainly that your descendants will be strangers in a land that is not theirs, speaking of Egypt, of course, and will serve them, and they will afflict them 400 years. Also that nation whom they serve I will judge. Afterward they shall come out with great possessions, just like it says in the Exodus. Now as for you, you shall go to your fathers in peace. You shall be buried in a good old age. Listen to this verse. Verse 16. But in the fourth generation they shall return here. Where is here? The land of Canaan. For the iniquity of the Amorites is not yet full, not yet complete. Isn't that an amazing statement? The iniquity or the Torahlessness of these wicked people was not yet full. That is fascinating. Just absolutely fascinating to me. Now, so that's one of the reasons the children of Israel had to stay in bondage for 400 years. Amazing, amazing. Going in now to chapter 14. Chapter 14 of Numbers, let's look at verses 2 through 4. 2 through 4. And the children of Israel complained against Moses and Aaron and the whole congregation and said to them, if only we had died in Egypt, if only we had died in the wilderness. Why has Yah brought us into this land to fall by the sword, that our wives and children should be victims? Would it not be better for us to return to Egypt? So they said to one another, let us select a leader and return to Egypt. All right, I'm sure you recognize the similarity between these passages we just read and the others surrounding the Exodus that they said numerous times. Some of his children, beloved ones, some of his children just seem to have a faith problem. Every man's given a measure of faith. Some have weak faith, some have strong faith. But they have a faith problem. It does not seem to matter how many miracles they may witness. They just have a faith problem. Let's look at 6 through 9. 6 through 9 of Numbers 14. But Joshua the son of Nun and Caleb the son of Jephunneh, who were among those who had spied out the land, tore their clothes. They went into a state of mourning because of what they said. And they spoke to all the congregation of the children of Israel, saying, the land we passed through to spy out is an exceedingly good land. If Yah delights in us, then he will bring us into this land and will give it to us, a land which flows with milk and honey. Only do not rebel against Yah, nor fear the people of the land, for they are our bread. They're just like a plate of beans put before us. This is how easy this is going to be. Their protection has departed from them. Did you hear that? Their protection has departed from them. This had to be wicked spirits protecting them. It has to be, because Yah would not protect this nonsense. This had to be wicked spirits protecting them. And Yah is with us. Do not fear them. Now, the men of Elohim warn these fearful, weak in faith, and here is their response. Look at the first part of verse 10. And the congregation said to stone them with stones. To stone them. All right, to stone the obedient. Kill the messenger, if you will. Now, this is just like today, is it not? Is this not just like today? We who are obedient to his eternal Torah are figuratively stoned by those who do not. You see it every day on Facebook, don't you? You see it every day. It's amazing. Nothing new under the sun, beloved ones. Nothing new under the sun. Now, let's look at the second part of verse 10. The second part of verse 10 through verse 12. Now the glory of Yah appeared in the tabernacle of meeting before all the children of Israel. Then Yah said to Moses, how long will these people reject me? Do you see that? How long will they reject me? How long will they not believe me? That means follow and obey. Follow and obey. That's what believe means. With all the signs which I have performed among them. I will strike them with the pestilence and disinherit them, and I will make of you, meaning Moses, a greater nation and mightier than they. Okay. This should sound familiar to you as well. This should sound very familiar to you. This is almost verbatim what Yah said to Moses after the golden calf incident. Almost verbatim. All right. Now, let's look at 13 through 19 and see what Moses says. What does Moses say? Moses said to Yah, then the Egyptians will hear it. For by your might, you brought these people up from among them. See where the glory's going to? And they will tell it to the inhabitants of this land. They have heard that you, Yahovah, are among these people, and that you, Yah, are seen face to face, and your cloud stands above them, and you go before them in a pillar of cloud by day, and a pillar of fire by night. Now, if you kill these people as you kill a man, then the nations will have heard of your fame. They have heard of it, will speak, saying, because Yah was not able to bring this people to the land which he swore to give them, that's why he killed them in the wilderness. And now I pray, let the power of my Adonai be great, just as you have spoken, saying, Yah is long-suffering, abundant in mercy, forgiving iniquity and transgression, but he by no means clears the guilty, visiting the iniquity of the father on the children to the third and the fourth generation. Pardon the iniquity of the people, I pray, according to the greatness of your mercy, just as you have forgiven these people from Egypt, even until now. So this is not the first episode. Not the first episode. Now, Moses' response was almost the same to Elohim after the golden calf incident, as well as it's mentioned right here. It was almost the same. He's reminding him of who he is and his promise. And of course, Yah knows this. It's here probably just for our benefit more than anything else. Let's look at 20 through 23. Next three verses. Then Yah said, I have pardoned according to your word. Look at that. I have pardoned them according to your word. But truly, as I live, all the earth shall be filled with the glory of Yahovah. Because all these men who have seen my glory and the signs which I did in Egypt and in the wilderness have put me to the test now these 10 times. This is the 10th time. Okay? And have not heeded my voice. They certainly shall not see the land which I swore to their fathers, nor shall any of those who rejected me see it. All right. Interesting how Yah forgives according to Moses' request. Is that not interesting? He forgave according to Moses' request. It reminds me of another way that Yeshua is like Moses. When he said, quote, Father, forgive them, for they do not realize what they are doing. He indeed did and does forgive his people, but there is usually a price to pay for faithlessness. Is it not, beloved ones? There's a price to pay for faithlessness, as there was here. The ones who rebelled were not allowed to enter the land promised to them. They were forgiven of their iniquity, but they paid a heavy price because also they did not live out their days and they fell in the desert. This kind of reminds me of the parable of the 10 virgins. 5 were allowed inside with Messiah. 5 were left outside. Does it kind of remind you of that as well? Also seen, I believe, we can see this in Revelation 22. Most of you know exactly what I'm going to read. Revelation chapter 22, the last chapter of the book. Beloved ones, the last chapter of the book, I'm sure that you know it, Revelation 22, 14 and 15. Blessed are those who do his commandments, obey his voice, that they may have the right to the tree of life and may enter into the gates of the city. Just like the ones that obeyed were able to enter the promised land. But outside, means outside the city, are dogs. This is a Hebrew idiom for Gentiles. Dogs, sorcerers, sexually immoral, murderers, idolaters, and whoever loves and practices a lie. Now, the ones obedient to the commandments are allowed into the eternal city. Correct? While the ones disobedient are outside with, well, the rest of the Torah violators. That's where they are. In Revelation 14:12, it adds also not just those keeping his commandments are blessed, but those who have the testimony or the faith of Yeshua HaMashiach. Now, the rest of this chapter, meaning chapter 14, tells us how all that Elohim said came to pass, and how some of the ones who were faithless tried to attack the wicked of the land of Canaan, but were defeated by the inhabitants because, quote, Yah was not with them, unquote. In other words, it was too late, beloved ones. It was too late to try to make their faithlessness right, you might say. Just like Esau. Remember what they said about Esau? After all the wickedness he had done, he sought repentance with tears, but it was not granted. It was not granted. Amazing statements. Numbers chapter 15, last chapter we're going to look at today. Look at verses 1 and 2 of Numbers 15. And Yah spoke to Moses, saying, Speak to the children of Israel, and say to them, when you have come into the land you are going to inherit, which I am giving you. There it is again. Note it says, when you come into the land, I am giving you again, not if. Not if. This was a major problem with the faithlessness of the spies that gave the bad report. They knew, beloved ones, they knew that Yah had told them the land was going to be theirs. So why say, quote, we cannot do it, unquote? Why say that? This brings to what Elohim has said into question. It brings it into question. It reminds me of the Israel deniers today. How many times and how many different ways does he have to say that he's going to replant our Jewish brothers and sisters back in the land for them to believe it. Now, I can understand men who studied the Bible in the past, before 1948. I can understand how they may have perhaps allegorized or spiritualized passages to mean something other than perhaps what Elohim clearly said was going to happen at some point in the future. That I can understand. I want to quote a great rabbi, one of my favorite rabbis of the past, Rabbi Avraham ibn Ezra. This is what he said about this passage, meaning 15 verse 2, about the land he was giving them. Now, this rabbi was born in 1089 and died in 1167, one of the great rabbis of the past. This is what he said about this passage. Quote, though this passage would not apply until 39 years later, remember they wandered in the desert 40 years, till all the complainers were dead, it was pronounced now to reassure the younger generation that Elohim still intended to give them the land, unquote. Excellent. Excellent. When the Creator says something like this, the zeal of Adonai Zavaot, the Lord of hosts, will perform something. Like, for instance, I will place on my holy hill of Zion the king, from Psalm 2. Or I will return the descendants of Abraham to the land of your ancestors. You can count on it being done, set in stone, as it were. It will happen. It will happen, as will all the rest of the prophecies come to fruition. Now, I want to read something here in 15, 22 through 29, because this is important to see this, because we're going to see about the man who was stoned for picking up sticks on the Sabbath. But I want you to see this first. Revelation 22 through 29. Context, beloved ones. Context. 22 through 29 of chapter 15. Now, if you sin unintentionally, listen to that word, unintentionally, and how many times it's said. If you sin unintentionally and do not observe all these commandments which Yah has spoken to Moses, all that Yah has commanded you by the hand of Moses, from the day Yah gave commandment and onward throughout your generations, then it will be, if it is unintentionally committed, without the knowledge of the congregation, that the whole congregation shall offer one young bull as a burnt offering, as a sweet aroma to Yah, with its grain offering, its drink offering, according to the ordinance he gave Moses, under the Levitical system. One kid of the goats as a sin offering. So the priest will make atonement for the whole congregation of the children of Israel, and it shall be forgiven them, because it was unintentional. They shall bring their offering, an offering made by fire to Yah, and their sin offering before Yahovah for their unintended sin. It shall be forgiven the whole congregation of the children of Israel and the stranger who dwells among them, because all the people did it unintentionally. And if a person sins unintentionally, then he shall bring a female goat in the first year as a sin offering. So the priest shall make atonement for the person who sins unintentionally. When he sins unintentionally before Yah, to make atonement for him, and it shall be forgiven him. You shall have one law for him who sins unintentionally, for him who is native born among the children of Israel, and for the stranger who dwells among them. Now, as I said, the reason I read these verses that have to do with unintentional Torah violation, because coming up in these next verses is the man that was stoned for gathering sticks on Shabbat. This is a different type of sin. Let's look. Verses 30 through 36. But the person who does anything presumptuously, Now, in Hebrew, that means with a high hand. In other words, defiant, defying the commandments. Whether he is native born or a stranger, this one brings reproach. What is that word? That word is na'atz, and it means blaspheme. Blaspheme. He is speaking hurtfully. He is ignoring the Lord. And he shall be cut off from his people. That means die physically. Because he has despised the word of Yah and has broken his mitzvah, his commandment. That person shall be completely cut off. His guilt, his iniquity, his Torahlessness will be upon him. Here's the story. Here's the story. Now, when the children of Israel were in the wilderness, they found a man gathering sticks on the Sabbath day. And those who found him gathering sticks brought him to Moses and Aaron and to all the congregation. They put him under guard because it had not been explained what should be done to him. Then Yah said to Moses, the man must surely be put to death, and all the congregation shall stone him with stones outside the camp. This is a kill, not a murder. A kill, not a murder. So, as Yah commanded Moses, all the congregation brought him outside the camp and stoned him with stones, and he died. All right. What did this man do that warranted the death penalty? A capital offense. I wanted to read all these passages that we just read so that we can see the context of what this man did. This was not an unintentional transgression. It wasn't. This fellow knew, as all the children of Israel did, the requirements of Shabbat. The death penalty for violating Shabbat is found all the way back in Exodus 31, verse 14. 31, verse 14. But I want to look at another passage, Leviticus chapter 24. Leviticus chapter 24 and verse 16. Leviticus 24, verse 16. Remember we talked about blasphemy? This guy blasphemed. Whoever blasphemes the name of Yah shall surely be put to death. All the congregation shall certainly stone him, the stranger, as well as him who is born in the land. When he blasphemes the name of Yah, he shall be put to death. Okay. What does name mean in Hebrew? The word is Shem. It primarily means power and authority. Authority. Whoever blasphemes the authority of Yahovah shall surely be put to death. And what is going against the authority of Yah called? It's called sin. Sin. And the one who sins